Good morning, I'm Tamara Shoemaker. Um, it looks a little bit different here right now. My laptop is having some issues, so I'm on my husband's laptop, which is in a different spot in the house. So this is where I'm at. So when I was a teenager, I had a musical library that I had slowly collected, featuring both cassette tapes and CDs, since I was hitting my musical stride right around the time as CDs were really becoming a thing. So there were several repeats in my collection because I didn't just want cassette tapes, I also wanted the CD. So DC Talk was probably my most often repeated one, and that was one of my favorite groups. And I was sad when a few years later the band kind of went apart and went their separate ways. Um, Over the weekend, one ex-member of the group announced that he had been kind of deconstructing his faith for years, and now he considers himself ex-evangelical. And following up, I followed up on some reading about that, and I was struck by his honesty about his confusion, although he didn't say it in so many words, except that he has more questions than answers, something that I've heard several people of faith say recently. And this morning, the Lord spoke to me about spiritual discernment. Um, a couple of years ago, I had seen a little news clip about the members of DC Talk with a "Where Are They Now" approach, right? And as it gave a very brief overview, I realized I hadn't really kept up with them all, but I had no idea what they would be doing. In the short video, I found that Toby Mac was now a solo artist. Apparently, my kids love his songs. I haven't really listened to him much these days. Michael Tate had been the lead singer of Newsboys, another favorite band of mine, while Peter Furler was still the lead singer. And then Kevin Max had done various projects, and I believe he had joined Audio Adrenaline at one point. So in this short video that I watched, I remember being really struck by the thought, Kevin seems lost. There was nothing there that would have pointed me in that direction, really, necessarily. And I hadn't really followed the band for years, so I didn't really know what each one of them were struggling with or what their successes were, even. But when that thought came, it came kind of as clear as a bell, and it came back to me this morning when I read about Kevin's weekend announcement. And busy person that I was, I'm ashamed to say that I shrugged off that gentle nudge and I left it. And as I say, that was a few years ago. So here's my thought. What if, y'all, what if I had realized that the Holy Spirit was nudging me to intercede for a struggling person with more questions than answers? I mean, this isn't the only time that I've realized, as of late, that I've missed something that the Holy Spirit has shown me, and then I've written it off as like a weird thought or whatever, or I've got things to do or whatever. And I'm ashamed of that. Y'all, I want intercession, frontline battle to be my first priority. The fact that I've got laundry to fold or, an exam to study for or whatever, in light of eternity, that comes second or 43rd or 124th. Those things are just not as important as what happens when the Holy Spirit says, Tamara, pray for this one. So, in the wider picture, the Lord has shown me that I need to be in prayer for our church, not just the church I attend, but the church that is the flock of Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Because the most successful war campaigns in history have been the ones that, they attack from the outside, from the inside out. I'm sorry, from the inside out. So if you want a good example of that, you might think about like the Trojan horse, for example. And the enemy and his attacks against the church, he's made headway, especially here in the United States, where we are not, as a widespread thing, really persecuted, as some members of the church are in other countries, where we don't have laws against worship or congregating for prayer, for example. But rather the attacks come in the form of subtle division. So like interfamily mask debates or vaccine debates, LGBTQ debates, social justice debates, Black Lives Matter debates. And this is really hard because Jesus cares so deeply for every person and every part of the debate, right? The point is, though, that many of us have focused on the debates themselves rather than on the enemy who is using those debates, to cause division. And we've tended to forget that we have a book that tells us the enemy's warfare strategy. Isn't that cool? 1 Corinthians 1:10-17 lays out Paul's concern in glaring letters. He says, my brothers, some from Chloe's household, I don't know who Chloe was, but she's in the Bible. My brothers, some from Chloe's household, have informed me that there are quarrels among you. What? Quarrels among the followers of Christ? Nah. Anyway, Here's the point. What I mean is this. One of you says, I follow Paul. Another says, I follow Apollos. Another, I follow Cephas. Or that was Peter. Still another, I follow Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Were you baptized into the name of Paul? I am thankful that I did not baptize any of you except Crispus and Gaius, so no one can say that you were baptized into my name. Yes, I also baptized the household of Stephanas. Beyond that, I don't remember if I baptized anyone else. For Christ did not send me to baptize, but to preach the gospel, not with words of human wisdom, lest the cross of Christ be emptied of its power. And this is where I think we've come to today. We're right back where the Corinthian church was in Paul's time. I follow Black Lives Matter Christianity. Well, you're wrong, because the Christianity you should be following is vaccine Christianity. Well, both of y'all are wrong, because you should be keeping a mask pasted over your mouth and nose, and that's Christianity. And of course, I haven't really heard anyone say those specific words, but that's kind of the spirit of what's happening. And we need to strip it down. We need to get rid of the human wisdom, which is emptying the cross of Christ of its power. Lord, bring us back to that cross. 1 Corinthians 2:2 and 4-5 says, For I resolved to know nothing among you while I was with you, except Jesus Christ and him crucified. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on men's wisdom, but on God's power. And that's where we've gotten confused. We've rested our faith on the wisdom of men. So this morning, as I prayed for the church, the Holy Spirit showed me a picture of a cross-section of earth. There were a lot of bushes above the earth, but below the ground's surface there was a tangle of roots that twisted through the dirt so thickly that you could hardly tell what was dirt and what was root. And in the mass of twisted roots were hearts. And they weren't the pretty heart-shaped ones that you find at Valentine's Day, but they were the ones with aortas and ventricles and chambers. And I kind of pulled back because it was kind of gross, because the roots pierced the hearts and they entwined around the hearts and they threaded through the hearts, and there was just no removing the hearts from the roots. And many hearts were beating, though some of them had gone completely still. And then I noticed soap bubbles, foaming around the hearts. And a man appeared, and I believe it was Jesus, though he had on a white t-shirt and a wide-brimmed gardener's hat, and he bent over the hearts and he gently wiped them with the foam, and the slickness from the soap freed the hearts from the roots. But the hearts quivered with pain because the soap just stung the open puncture wounds. But the man continued on relentlessly. And Malachi 3:2 came to mind as I watched. Who can stand when he appears? For he will be like a refiner's fire and a launderer's soap. We can't be afraid of refinement. In fact, we should long for it, right? Because refinement burns away the false gospels. And I'll admit, I've been praying for the church to shake really hard. I've prayed that the Lord would shake us so much that we could only fall on our faces before him, so that when we look for help, we look only to him, not to Paul, not to Apollos, not to Cephas, not to vaccines or masks or social justice. We look only to the cross of Christ and to the empty tomb next to it. So Hebrews 12:26-29 says, At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, Once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens. The words once more indicate the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. Holy Spirit, shake up what should be shaken among your people, so that what's unshakable may be all that remains. That's what I had for today. Hope you enjoyed my kids coming through in the background. It's sometimes a crazy house, but we do what we can. I hope you were blessed by the message today. So I will see you tomorrow.